Hey everybody, it's Mr. Miserable of Miss Sunshine and Mr. Miserable, and I'm here today. It's actually today. This is a sad day for me. Not even a sad day, probably about a sad week, and I think it's because I didn't find out till March 8th that Akira Toryami passed away. And I think he passed away March 1st though. But I guess it took a while for like all the information to properly get out. And like I really didn't even notice it. And plus, but I work a lot. Maybe that's why it took me so long to find out. I didn't find out till probably like March 8th that he had passed away. Um, for anyone who doesn't know, Akira Toriyami is the creator of Dr. Slump, but he's also more famous for the creation of the Dragon Ball series, which started off as a manga and became one of the worldwide phenomena that we know as Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, to a lesser extent, Dragon Ball GT, and Dragon Ball Super. Yeah, he passed away at the age of 68. Um, it's crazy because for me, I am not like a real big person into like celebrities and things of that nature. Which is weird because not weird, but it's just life to me. Like I'm not into like kind of revering stars or anything of that nature because they're people just like everybody else. Um, but yeah, like his loss will have an impact on people all over the world and things of that nature. Um, it's weird because I remember when Kobe had passed. Like yeah, and I remember a lot of people took the whole Kobe passing hard. And to me, I look at even though maybe Akira Toryami doesn't have the name in America that Kobe did. I think worldwide, Akira Toryami may have had just as big as impact as maybe a Kobe Bryant, if you think about it, like around the world. Like people really don't know the impact that his Shonen Jump Dragon Ball really had on the impact of young readers getting into anime and manga and things of that nature. You could probably really make that kind of comparison to say worldwide, he may have just had maybe just as much of impact as somebody like Kobe. You know, like you've been hearing about the worldwide like comments coming out after his passing and things of that nature. And if you hear his backstory, it's like he had lost his job at the age of 23, and he really just needed a couple of checks, and he started getting into like drawing competitions. Like, and I think if I remember correctly, he didn't win the drawing competition, but I think one of the editors from the magazine had told him he liked some of his artwork and this inspired him to keep drawing. And he kept sending his stuff, was still getting rejected. And like I said, his first success actually did not come with Dragon Ball. It was Dr. Slump. Dr. Slump was his first success. And literally, he was still having trouble kind of making a breakthrough. And like he said, he had kind of commented like he felt like he was in a kung fu movie where he was like against all odds. And somebody advised him, well, maybe you should just do a kung fu style manga. And that's where Dragon Ball really came from. Like, Dragon Ball is probably considered one of the greatest anime, one of the greatest shonens of all time. Um, was it uh was it a complete work of art? I mean, it just like any other show, it had its character development flaws. I honestly felt like Naruto has had better character development than Dragon Ball. I honestly do believe that. That being said, for people who call Naruto, One Piece, and Bleach the big three, I disagree just from the standpoint that it helped. I think it helped that the newer generation explode for the anime in the shonen and manga, and I will agree with that. But like anime's always been around. And to be honest, for a lot of people that aren't Gen X or millennials, Dragon Ball was that bridge gap for them. A lot of people who don't even know who Naruto or One Piece, they who may not know who Naruto or Luffy is, what Goku is. Let's just be honest. Goku will always be one of the most Google anime character names of all times. Well, I won't say all times because I can't speak for 5 years from now or whatever. But in the last 10, 15 to 20 years, Goku probably has always been in the top five for most Google names of all time. And you have Akira Toryami to thank for that. So I know a lot of people don't really consider Dragon Ball in the big three because the relevance of its time. Because if you really look at it, Naruto came. Naruto was the successor to Dragon Ball to me. That's how I always looked at it. And like like I got my Neji hoodie on now. Neji was one of my favorite Naruto characters of all times. Unfortunately, well, not even a spoiler. Naruto didn't make it to the end of. I mean, Neji didn't make it to the end of Naruto, but it is what it is. Um, but that being said, like I said, Akira Toryami had a real big impact on anime and American pop culture and just pop culture in general across the world. He's going to be missed. And like I said, and then other geek stuff or whatever's going on, the new Crow trailer dropped today. I think, yeah, they dropped today. Um, I'm excited about the Crow. I really am excited about the Crow. Um, that's my dog drinking water. But yeah, I am very excited about the new Crow. Um, when the first Crow came out with Brandon Lee, another one, rest his peace, Brandon Lee. In fact, it's weird because I think the 30th anniversary of the original Crow that he did is this year. Yeah, it is this year. In fact, because they're about to release the 4K for the 30th anniversary, of course, which I'll be getting. Um, my mother passed away in 1992. Just a little brief thing about me, and I bring this up just because of my music preferences. So around the time my mother passed, I listened to nothing but 95.9, which was nothing but like R&B classics. You had the Anita Bakers. I was big into like the old school hip hop. Well, I guess what you would call old school hip hop now, because back then, all I listened to was like LL Cool J, Big Daddy Kane, Rakim, all them guys. I still love it. I still love the old school hip hop and R&B and stuff like that. I really don't listen to none of the new stuff. But one of the reasons I don't is because when my mother passed around 92, we was starting to go into a new era of music, which was the Seattle bands were starting to drop. And Nirvana was kind of like really the band that kind of helped me get through a lot of stuff after my mother passed away. That being said, when The Crow came out, first of all, I was already a big Brandon Lee fan. I had already seen like, even though Brandon Lee had already did a couple of movies, I had already saw Rapid Fire and all them. Like I was already a big Brandon Lee fan. Then hearing him pass, and you knew I know I had to go to the movies. I was only like 13 or 14, but I like made my father drag me and my brother to the movies. We went to see The Crow, and the soundtrack was just so different. Like the Crow soundtrack, I say Nirvana in '92 and the original Crow soundtrack is really what formed my musical mindset. It was the first time The Crow soundtrack was the first time I heard Stone Temple Pilots. It was the first time I had heard Nine Inch Nails. And Nine Inch Nails and Stone Temple Pilots is in my top five greatest bands of all time. Like, but that was the first time me hearing those two bands. So The Crow, the movie was awesome. Had Ernie Hudson. First time I'd ever saw him, the guy who played Candyman he was the hit, he was the black hitman. Um, Brandon Lee, of course. And the guy who played the main bad guy, like, I've always liked him as an actor. Never really knew his name. I remember him from The Crow, and I also remember he was the guy in Aliens 4. He was like the one of the main guys. He got kind of killed like early, like midway through the movie. Really didn't make it to the end. But yeah, like I've always liked him as an actor. Like he just always played like kind of like odd characters, but I've always liked him as an actor. But anyway, like the Crow soundtrack just was like it blew me away. That's what kind of made me. The Crow soundtrack is what made me get into alternative music. Like I will always be an alternative music, what they call alternative music fan. I think the grunge era that hit around the time my mother passed, and the Crow soundtrack is what really kind of swayed me more from the. I don't want to say the traditional black person just listening to R&B and hip hop. But yeah, that kind of what it was. It's like with my mother passing, Nirvana hitting, and then the Crow soundtrack coming out. Like yes, that's kind of what like, and like if I'm hoping this Crow does justice to the original Crow, but also I don't want it to be a legacy movie. I just want it to be a movie on its own. Like, and that's one of the things that's killing me right now is like when they do these movies and it's like, oh, it's a like we're gonna bring back a legacy character. Don't do that. Don't bring back a legacy character. Just redo it and just have it stand on its own strength and its own merit as its own movie. I think that's where they fucked up with the Halloween franchise, and that's where they fucked up with the Exorcist franchise. Cause think about it, when they did the Halloween, the first time we saw um, Jamie Lee Curtis again, it was cool. But then when Halloween Kills came out and Halloween Ends came out, it was kind of like, yo, yeah, fucked it up. You know, like I think the legacy character thing, it gets old after a while, and I'm kind of already tired of that. You bringing back these old franchises, like, oh, we gotta bring back somebody from the original. But then it's like, if the story's no good, the story's no good, and that's one of the things I felt about The Exorcist. Like, not saying that the story wasn't good, but it was like, you didn't bring nothing new. Like, what when The Exorcist came out, it was the same year, like the 50th anniversary. 50th no, on 50th anniversary of Exorcist, Blu-ray came out. Of course, I got it. I'm a big Exorcist fan. One of my greatest all time, one of my all time greatest horror movies. Had to get the 50th anniversary 4K special, of course. But The Exorcist, what's it called? Exorcist Believers or whatever. When I walked away from that movie, was like, it just wasn't nothing special. Like everything the director did in it, it wasn't nothing new. It wasn't nothing special. Like we've seen other horror movies over the last couple of years that have kind of had the Exorcist possession style movie do similar things. Like you didn't bring nothing new to the table, nothing special to the table. Only thing you really did was you just brought Ellen Burstyn back for a cameo and you brought Linda Blair back for a cameo. That was it. For all that, you just could have left that shit on the shelf. Um, but like I said, Crow trailers dropping soon. I heard it was good because my brother he always sees all the stuff before I do because I'm always at work. Um, but yeah, I mean I'm gonna check it out today. Hopefully it's some good because like I said, I love the first Crow with Brandon Lee. The other ones that kind of came after it, some of them they was just B movie quality. I just leave it at that. They was just B movie quality, and you kind of got what you expected out of them. But I actually like Skarsgård as well. He's a pretty good actor. So we'll see what they do with this one. Hopefully, it's some pretty good. Like I said, I'm gonna go see it no matter what. 'Cause you got to see a movie for yourself um, before you can make a judgment of it properly. Anyway, like you can't always go off of Rotten Tomato scores and things like that. Um, just like the whole thing with the Avatar. Finally finished the Avatar series. For what it was worth, it was good. And I say that from the standpoint, like I nitpick anime, I nitpick Marvel movies, just because a lot of times with the Marvel movies, I've actually read the comic books. So it's like I kind of know what I expect. And it's like, it's kind of like one of them things where it's like if you read the book and then you watch the movie, it's like, oh, well, the book was better. And that's how it be a lot of times with a lot of movies and things like that. And it was weird because I mentioned, you know, the unfortunate passing of Akira Toryami at the beginning. And remember this week, the young man who did the live action Dragon Ball apologized, you know, for the live action Dragon Ball, and he kind of gave a condolences to Mr. Toryami passing. And my whole thing is, as an actor, in a way, he shouldn't have to apologize for his work because he didn't write it. He just played the part that they gave him. Yes, the movie sucked. It is considered one of the worst adaptations from an anime of all time. But to be honest, it's one of the reasons why I always cringe when I hear about them turning an anime or a cartoon into a live action movie. It's just so hard to do. When M Night Shyamalan did the Avatar a couple of years ago, I kind of asked the question like, what did y'all expect from him? Because he literally had to take a movie and break all these episodes down into like a 2 hour movie. That's almost impossible to do. Now he could have took two steps where he could have just created his own original story and just went away from. In fact, that may have been the better idea if he could have just took Aang, Suko, um, Sakura. Oh damn, I said Sakura wrong show, wrong show. But he could have took the original crew. He could have took Toph and all them and just created an original story. He didn't really have to base it off of the TV series, which probably would have been a lot better to do. It would have been a lot easier if he'd have just created his own story. Another reason I think M. Night Shyamalan fucked up though was he kind of did the race card with his characters because he had most of the main characters be white except for the Fire Nation. And he had all of the Fire Nation kind of be like people of color. I think they were Indian. It seemed like they was Indian. Yeah, he fucked up with that one. Like he really fucked up with that one. I think well, I mean, of course, he was trying to sell to a white audience, but yeah, I think M Night Shyamalan really messed up with that one. I think he should have. That's one of the things I liked about the new Netflix Avatar, where it was like basically everybody seems like they're for the most part of the same ethnicity. I think that works out better for the most part than just having, yeah, we're gonna have all the white people be this one, or we're gonna have all the Asian people be this one, and yeah, we're gonna have all the darker skinned people. Let's make them the Fire Nation. We're gonna make them the bad guys. I think that really just didn't sit well with a lot of people. But you live and you learn. But like I said, I felt like the Avatar on Netflix isn't bad if you're not nitpicking. And what I mean by that is if you're gonna be the person who be like, well, in episode 3 of what they call it, this happened and it didn't happen, in the live action, then yeah, you're always gonna find reasons to complain. And you're talking to somebody who had to live through that when I was dissecting my Marvel stuff. Like I had to stop looking at the Marvel stuff and like, well, in the comic book this happened, but in this happened, because in the comic book Thanos killed Captain America with a snap of a finger. He literally plucked Captain America and snapped his neck. But that didn't happen in Infinity War. Well, of course, they're going to change it around. Things change. That's just the way it is. But, you know, like I said, unfortunately, I'm going to just end it up on this. Like I said, unfortunately, we lost Akira Toryami. I believe it was March 1st. You know, and me in the anime world, we like I said, we always give the big three to Naruto, Bleach, and One Piece. And for the younger generation, I don't have no problem with them saying that because I just look at it like this. You know what? At least they're watching anime. You know, I am in a group what they call Zennials. And a Zennial is what they call the group that's in between Gen X and Millennials. They're the group that Gen X look at as being too soft to be Gen X, but we're 3 years older than the Millennial group starting, so we're not really considered in the Millennial group neither. I was born in '79, so like I said, I am technically, I guess I'm supposed to be Gen X, but Gen X considers babies born in '79 a little too soft to be Gen X. So we get classified as Zennial because we're in that age gap in between of transferring over from analog to digital in a lot of ways. Like shit, we still know how to program a VCR, but we came around along the time of like VCR was starting to die and stuff like that. So I still know what an analog phone looked like, but I barely ever used it. Point blank and simple like that. Um, but like I said, in the anime world, we lost a big loss, had a big loss. It's weird because the Dragon Ball Super manga is finishing up, and I was a little disappointed when I heard about Dragon Ball Daima starting this year, and it was just because I think everybody wanted to see them finish the Super anime. Um, Actually, there's a possibility. I honestly think Super may still finish because it would make so much sense for them to finish the Super anime, especially with the manga going on and stuff like that. Or maybe they'll find some kind of way to tie Dragon Ball Daima into Super some kind of way. That may also work out as well. Um, but we'll see. I think one of the things that concerned me about seeing the trailer for Daima was seeing them as kids. And I hope that's not something they really rely on because I feel like they tried that with GT and it didn't work out. And I felt like they was doing that because remember when GT came out, if you look at around the time GT came out, first of all, they did no mangas for GT. GT was just something they just came up with out of the thin air. Akira Toryami did do some of the drawings for it, but he had nothing really to do with the stories for it. But you also look at the fact that y'all look at what was popular at the time. Pokemon was popular at the time. What was that shit? Beyblades was popular at the time. Yu-Gi-Oh was popular at the time. And I say that because the shows that was kind of based on like seeing the little kids was popular at the time. And I think somebody thought, well, oh, let's make Goku a kid. And I think it just didn't play well into the story because you had this kind of odd relationship with Goku and Pan. Like Goku is Pan's grandfather. It was just like an odd relationship between Goku and Pan, and then you threw Trunks into the mix, and it was like, ugh. But it's funny because Super had that weird relationship with Trunks and Mai, because Mai is older than Goku, and she literally has a crush on Trunks. Even so much so that during the Goku Black during the Goku Black story arc, when Trunks come back into the past, he comes back into the past with Mai. With Mai. Yeah, Mai. Mai is her name. It's just weird, but I guess it works for the Japanese culture. But like sometimes as an American looking at some Japanese troops and stuff like that, you just kind of be like, that's kind of weird to throw into the story. But like I said, we lost Akira Toryami this week. Not this week. I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago. It's unfortunate. It's kind of weird to see how the franchise would go from here. Because I've had this discussion with people about the whole thing with the Black Panther. You know, Cat Williams had told the joke about why didn't they get somebody to replace the Black Panther? Because like he said, in all respects to Chadwick Boseman, but like Cat Williams has said in the comedy show, he didn't create the character. So it's not really not his character. It's not his, what is it? It's not his artificial. It's not his intellectual property because he didn't create the character. That's what I'm trying to say. And like Cat Williams is like they could have got somebody else to replace him, just like how they eventually got somebody to replace Christopher Reeves. But I think the thing with Chadwick Boseman passing was that it was just so soon. Like it's too soon to kind of replace Black Panther with another actor, with him just passing so soon and him just playing the character so successful. If you really look at the whole Christopher Reeve Superman thing, it was literally almost 20 years before they had brought in another Superman to replace Christopher Reeves. So time had went by. Because eventually with all these Marvel characters, of course, they're eventually going to replace them with other actors. But Chadwick Boseman had recently passed after doing such a great job as Black Panther. They just couldn't get anybody to recast him at this time. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Akira Toryami and his Dragon Ball series because do you continue on without him? I mean, like I said, Daima is dropping this year. Um, they did carry on with GT without him, even though he did some of the drawings for the characters, because he was the one who did the drawing for the Super Saiyan 4, but he didn't have anything to do with the stories. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do that. Like how would they allow that to go? Um, but like I said, once again, everybody, at the end of the day, we always come to the realization that life is short. And as you get older, you start to realize life is a lot shorter than really what you think it is. It's weird. Mr. Toyami was only 68 years old. And I say only because some people look at 68 as being old. I mean, I guess you could say it is. Then you hear about people living to 90, 95. It's just an unfortunate passing. He's still was at a time in his life where he still could have been doing things. Um, but from what it seemed like he had a good life. So, but just like anybody else, and maybe I think about it because it's like nowadays when I hear about people passing, sometimes I look at the clock for myself and be like, damn, he was only 68. Like shit, that's only 24 more years for me. So, like I said, just take advantage of the time you have. Try to live it as best as you possibly can. Try to look out for yourself, look out for others, look out for your loved ones. Shit, even look out for the people that's not your loved ones. Sometimes the conversation with a stranger, somebody you don't even know, could really brighten their day. Um, but on that note, what do I always say? On, be good to each other. Have a great day, have a great time, and look out for each other. And until next time, people, peace and love.